This week on The Record, he's in. Gabe Gore is running for St. Louis Circuit Attorney. What he told us on The Record the day before launching his bid. Illinois gun owners face a deadline to register banned assault weapons. We go behind the scenes with Highland Park mass shooting survivor Ashb Beasley. And hear concerns from Illinois Freedom Caucus founder Brad Halbrook. What could the state do with a gun registry? It's all coming up right now. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. St. Louis Circuit Attorney Gabe Gore launched his bid to run for a full 4-year term as the city's top prosecutor Wednesday. The day prior, he delivered a 6-month progress report from a downtown courtroom, and then immediately after saying this, came and spoke with us on The Record.
There's no type of crime that we are looking the other way on. We are enforcing the laws. We don't think, and we don't accept the notion that if, as a citizen of the city of St. Louis, you have to accept a certain amount of property crime, or what people would refer to as petty crime, as a cost of living in a city.
St. Louis Circuit Attorney Gabe Gore is now on The Record, and it's good to have you with us.
It's good to be here.
You also said that your office is now charging cases when they're applied for. That implies renewed or increased trust in police. How automatic is that decision when you file those charges?
Well, when I say that we're filing charges when they're applied on, it doesn't mean that we're not conducting a review process and determining that there's enough evidence to support the charges. So I don't think it reflects necessarily increased trust in police. What it reflects is a timely process of conducting the analysis necessary to make a charging decision.
And perhaps that contrast was because you highlighted your predecessor's lax discretion on pursuing property crimes in particular. You said that there would be a change in the way business was conducted, that property crimes wouldn't just be left uncharged. How would you describe that policy's impact to the city's economy or overall morale?
I wasn't necessarily referencing the prior administration's approach. What I was referencing was that's what we were pursuing, and therefore I think that that is the basis for the increased number of charges.
Well, you said it was a decision, and that the office would no longer be letting crimes go uncharged. That sounds like a decision.
For me, it wasn't really a discretionary decision. As circuit attorney, it's my job to enforce the laws. So it wasn't something where I felt like I was exercising discretion. I feel like I was just doing my job.
Mm-hmm. Do you see yourself as a reformer or an executor of the criminal justice system that we have today?
I view myself in my role as circuit attorney as someone who the community has placed a tremendous amount of trust in. That it's a tremendous responsibility being circuit attorney and enforcing the laws.
With respect, the community hasn't yet. The governor has. The community may still do that.
I like to think that the community has, and we've been completely embraced by the community, so I would disagree with you on that. I think the community has placed that trust in our office. I think that's been reflected in my engagement with the community, and I welcome that. And my goal is to perform my duties professionally, competently, with fairness and compassion.
Do you see avenues through which your office can affect change, policy change, as a prosecutor, or do you see that job as something left to the legislature?
I believe that the approach we take to enforcing the laws is policy. I think that's when I say that there's a tremendous trust placed in the office. I think the charging decisions we make are policy. I think the manner in which we dispose of cases in terms of making recommendations for plea negotiations, which are a necessary part of any prosecutor's office, that's policy. I think setting up a diversion unit and determining how your diversion unit's going to operate, that's policy. Making the decision that I've made that I'm going to deeply engage with the community, that I'm going to be available, that I'm going to be out there in community meetings, that's policy. So yes, we have an impact on policy.
We've got a lot of defendants locked up in the City Justice Center right now. Have you been inside?
I have not.
Would you like to see the conditions there? How would you describe what you've heard so far?
I've been inside of a lot of jails and prisons during the course of my career. I've spent more times in jails and prisons than most people. I will at some point go over and tour and get a sense of what's going on there. As circuit attorney, I don't run the jails. I don't have responsibility for the jails.
You've been on the job 6 months now. I imagine you've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of cases come across your desk. In the course of reviewing those charges, have there been any cases where a suspect accused of a violent felony has been able to post bond and avoid going to the City Justice Center while they wait for their trial?
You're asking me whether there have been any cases during the time that I've been circuit attorney where a defendant, someone charged by our office, has made bond. Yes, there's been many, 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 many.
Conversely, have there been any defendants accused of a nonviolent crime that couldn't pay bond, couldn't afford to post that payment and remain in jail?
I am not in the weeds. We currently have, I believe, 3,000 felonies pending in the 22nd Judicial Circuit filed by my office. I am not in the weeds every day reviewing bond decisions and charging decisions. That's not part of my role.
I guess the question is, what role should wealth play in determining a suspect's liberty before their trial, before their conviction?
It is my view that, and I believe this is largely what we see occur in the 22nd Judicial Circuit. It is my view that wealth should play no role, and that the decision that should be made is whether or not this is a defendant who can be released on bond with conditions in place that will ensure the safety of the community. That, to me, is the critical piece, is that, one, you ensure that defendants are not going to pose a danger to the community, and that they're going to show up for their court dates and participate in the prosecution of their case.
So when the public hears you say wealth should play no role, do they also hear you say you'd like to see the legislature change that and abolish cash bail? Or do you still see that as a tool at your discretion?
I am not a legislator, and I'm not a legislator. I don't sit around thinking about what they should do in Jeff City. I focus on where the rubber meets the road, which is our courthouse. And that's the practice I see, that's the analysis I see our judges going through on a daily basis.
Circuit Attorney Gabe Gore, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
When we come back, we hear from a mass shooting survivor who inspired Illinois' ban on assault weapons next. On July 4th, 2021, a mass shooter used an AR-15 to tear through a crowded parade in Highland Park, Illinois. Ashb Beasley ran with her 6-year-old boy to try and escape that gunfire. Then she testified before Congress, state legislatures, rallied voters, and even earned media attention around the globe. Part of her story took an even more unlikely turn when she was on vacation visiting family and friends in Nashville, Tennessee, when this happened.
How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them? Gun violence is the #1 killer of children and teens. It has overtaken cars.
The park survivor and gun control activist Ashb Beasley is now on the record. Thank you for joining us. I don't know the exact odds of a mass shooting survivor traveling near halfway across the country and then encountering the aftermath of yet another mass shooting where children were victims in both cases. But what do your encounters with these types of tragedies say about the scale or the scope of the problem that our country faces?
Right now, we're already at something like 50% of Americans have either themselves have been affected by gun violence or know someone who has been affected by gun violence, whether that's like a family friend or someone that they know peripherally. And pretty soon we're going to be to 100%. We have kids who were at Oxford High School and lived through that shooting, and then are now at university at the University in Michigan that just had a mass shooting there. We are seeing many people who have lived through multiple mass shootings or incidents of gun violence, because gun violence is an everyday situation that is happening that's uniquely American.
It's a pretty cruel metric and not the way anyone would want to go about building a political voting bloc, but a reality in politics, you need a lot of people to affect change. And maybe that public support is changing. I want to reference a Fox News poll conducted earlier this year. It found 61% of voters would support a ban on assault weapons. Other gun restrictions or regulations like background checks or mental health checks, cooling off periods, red flag laws, they were far more popular than even at 61%. So if public opinion is increasingly on your side, why isn't the law?
I mean, honestly, it's the gun lobby. The NRA has deep pockets. They buy our politicians, they buy judges, and their money and influence are really holding us back from making these legislative steps. Additionally, we have lawmakers in office right now who are not listening to their constituents. Their constituents are clear. Their messaging is clear that they care about gun safety legislation, and their lawmakers are just not listening to them.
You've seen Illinois and now 9 other states ban the sale of assault weapons. Where is it easier to affect change, at the state level or in D.C.?
I think we're doing it at the state level because we have to, because there is no federal law. And while it is incredible, and I'm very proud of our Illinois lawmakers for passing an assault weapon ban in the state of Illinois, the problem is that guns do not adhere to borders. Gun trafficking is a major problem when we are surrounded by states that have looser gun laws where people can go in and buy some of these weapons without a background check. It affects us here in Illinois. We need a federal law to ban assault weapons and keep our communities safe. But we do this at a state level because we want to protect ourselves. We want to be safe here in Illinois. And so we elect gun safe candidates, and then we pass laws to keep our community safe from gun violence.
But even the Illinois law doesn't ban assault weapons. It bans the sale or the new transfer of assault weapons. And I point that out only for the practical reason many of our viewers watching may have some of these banned blacklisted weapons in their arsenal now. And that's legal under the Illinois state law. You can keep those. Is that something that you want to see change? If these guns are too dangerous to sell, do you want to see the government one day declare they're too dangerous to own?
I don't think that is the purpose of this. I think the purpose is to ban the future sale and manufacture of these weapons, so at a federal level, so that people will not be able to buy them anymore. We did the same thing in 1986 when we passed a ban on the future sale and manufacture of machine guns, which is a federal law. People can still own those guns. Many collectors do. You have to go through a special licensing process to be able to buy one that has been manufactured before 1986. And we don't see people commit mass shootings with machine guns or fully automatic weapons. We don't see that. What we do see is people commit mass shootings with semi-automatic weapons because they are so easy to get. They're so accessible and so easy to go out and buy. So I think when we stop the sale of them and people can't just go out and buy these guns, there are lives that are being saved because the easy access to weapons is what's killing us.
Ashb Beasley, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our extended interviews and more information about the show, you can text the word record to 314-425-5355 to find it. When we come back, he fought the assault weapons ban in Illinois, but will he abide by it? We'll be right back. If you own an assault weapon in Illinois, you have until the new year to register that weapon with the state. That's according to the new Protect Illinois Communities Act, which bans the sale or transfer of specific assault weapons anywhere in the state. If you already owned one of those guns on that list, you can keep it legally. Critics of the law are raising questions about how police or prosecutors might enforce that registration requirement. House Republican and founding member of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, Brad Halbrook, is now on the record. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You closed your remarks on the floor of the Illinois House recently, quoting a number of other people, but also said this, quote, "We will not comply." Is that your position? Do you own any of the guns on this list? And are you saying you refuse to register them?
Well, I think this bill has tons of issues, the constitutionality of it, the equal protection, and many other things. And so I think right now we see that there's agency and chaos. There's a disagreement between the governor's office and the AG's office on how the enforcement's going to be played out. And so I think until they get the final rules enacted, I don't know how anybody can comply with what is currently in place.
For our viewers that are watching along, a powerful but little-known committee called the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules is scheduled to meet in the middle of December. On their agenda is this issue, so perhaps more information about how this law will be rolled out or implemented is still forthcoming. But again, you use some rhetoric like this. You use the phrase that the governor was, quote, going to declare war against law-abiding gun owners. Is that responsible rhetoric? Is that you see this as an act of war?
Well, I think the point was, the question is the governor, is the General Assembly ready to declare war on law-abiding citizens? I think that's the question, because that's what they're trying to do here. We've got 2.4 million law-abiding FOID card holders in the state of Illinois that on January the 1st, unless they've registered their firearms, are on this 85-page list that's pictures and descriptions of all the banned firearms and the parts and the different components. They're going to be felons January the 1st. And so our question is the governor and the General Assembly ready to declare war on these almost 2.5 million citizens in the state of Illinois?
You've raised the question to the Illinois State Police, and I believe they answered you. It's written there. It's a little bit hard to deduce from the way the law is written, but it looks as though the first offense for failing to sign this affidavit or failing to fill out the paperwork to register your weapons is that it's a Class A misdemeanor, not a felony yet. That's the second or repeat offense. So you're suggesting that people will be scofflaws, just an open violation, and will continue to refuse to register even after the misdemeanor. Why?
Well, I think the question is what is the first offense? Is that per firearm that's found to be out of compliance? What does that really mean? And we found out in response to that, the Illinois State Police's own attorney said, well, this is going to be a decision for local states, county states attorneys to decide how they're going to prosecute and how they're going to move forward with it. So I guess that's further brings up other questions about how this is all going to work out.
I heard you express concern that the state might one day down the road do something that would be illegal now, which is to take this list and use it to go and seize someone's weapon. What legal grounds would the state ever have to do that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, this whole FOID card matter just brings into kind of a unique situation here in the state of Illinois. So what happens if people do not comply by January the 1st, but yet they've been prosecuted, firearms have been seized, and the law may be overturned by the Supreme Court of the United States, may be overturned sometime in 2024. What's going to happen to that? What's going to happen to that list of folks that registered their firearms and the law is overturned? Will that list be destroyed? How can we be confident that the list won't be compromised and end up in the wrong hands? That's the question we have.
Representative Halbrook, as you put it, a lot more questions than answers. We hope to check back in with you after this JCAR meeting to see what gun owners should know about this law before it takes effect and that registration kicks off January 1st. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
The politics of guns can feel so deeply divisive and bipartisan agreement so far from reach, it can almost start to seem as though that's always been that way. So let's check the record. It turns out one of the most popular Republicans ever, the Illinois native who won 49 states in 1984, President Ronald Reagan, who himself survived an assassin's bullet, supported restricting access to assault weapons. To be clear, Reagan told the NRA back in 1983, we will never disarm any American who seeks to protect his or her family from fear and harm. But here's where he drew the line. Listen to what he said the month after leaving office in February 1989.
And I do not believe in taking away the right of the citizen to own guns for sporting, for hunting and so forth, or for home defense. But I do believe that an AK-47, a machine gun, is not a sporting weapon or needed for defense of the home.
For defense at home, he said. 5 years later, in 1994, Reagan penned a letter to Congress and wrote, while we recognize that assault weapon legislation will not stop all assault weapon crime, statistics prove that we can dry up the supply of these guns, making them less accessible to criminals. The president's push indeed prodded Congress to change those laws, and a decade later, the law would expire. The markets took advantage, the culture changed, and the crime stats did too. A surgery professor at NYU later compiled the data, examining mass shooting deaths at the hands of a shooter with an assault weapon. During the ban, 53 of them. The decade after, nearly 4 times higher, 199, and rising. That doesn't count the country concert in Las Vegas, the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, the high school in Parkland, the Baptist church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, or the Walmart in El Paso, Texas, or the grade school in Uvalde, Texas. It doesn't count Lewiston, Maine, Or in California, it doesn't count San Bernardino, Monterey Park, or Thousand Oaks. It doesn't count Highland Park, Illinois. In fact, when we checked the record, one of the only gun-related charts we could find with the same rapid rise over that same time span was the stock price of some of the companies selling those guns. That's the record. We're back next week. Until then, we're off the record.